YouTube. So today I am reacting to most underrated skill of each GOAT part 2. If you didn't check out part 1 reaction, go to my channel and watch it. So let's get into it, bro. I bet not see I bet she Curry and it better be the best. Curry better have the best thing. Look at Curry, man. Bro, Curry looks so good, bro. Like, damn, bro. Even now, bro. The muscles and like everything. Curry really got more muscles than LeBron, bro. That's what people don't understand.
Although people almost universally agree that these legends are the greatest basketball players to ever live, I still believe there are certain aspects of their game that is very underappreciated. Today, I want to place a spotlight on those underrated aspects, which for one, should have some value for basketball education, but I also think this information can help equip you better when debating your list of the greatest players of all time. So without further ado, let's get into it. First off, Kobe Bryant. To me, the most underrated aspect of Kobe's game was his playmaking ability. Everybody knows that the Mamba's natural tendency was to shoot a high volume of shots. For goodness sake, even Kobe identified himself as a gunner on numerous occasions. Because of this, many people tend to overlook the Mamba's ability to create opportunities for others, as he was a far better passer than he's usually given credit for. Of the players who played primarily at the shooting guard position, Kobe has the second most assists in NBA history, trailing only James Harden. So it's not like he never passed the ball like many of his critics like to claim. Obviously, Kobe's longevity certainly helped in that department, as he had a 20-year career in the NBA. On several rare instances in Kobe's career, he displayed what he was capable of when he focused primarily on getting his teammates involved. In the early months of the Lakers' 2012 to 2013 season, the Lakers were struggling to find their chemistry and win basketball games. As an attempt to shake up the formula, Kobe was moved to the point guard position for a small stretch of games against Utah, Oklahoma City, and New Orleans. In those 3 games, Kobe put up stat lines of 14 points, 14 assists, and 9 rebounds, and then 21 points, 14 assists, and 9 rebounds, and then 14 points, 11 assists, and 8 rebounds. A more selective Kobe shot 59% from the field over that stretch, and the Lakers won all 3 games. In the post-game interview, he was asked how he would do if he always focused his energy on facilitating, and Kobe basically said that he believes he'd be the best point guard in the game. You'd be correct if you said that Kobe loved shooting the ball way more than he liked passing it, but you'd be wrong if you said that Kobe wasn't a great passer in general. Now let's look at Tim Duncan. If you ask me, the most underrated thing about Tim Duncan was his explosiveness, especially early on in his career. Back in the 2000s, there was this common narrative about the San Antonio Spurs, that they were the most boring team in the NBA. Honestly, it kind of makes sense. They were a small market franchise, they had a relatively limited history up to that point, and even their team was wearing extremely muted colors. On top of all of that, their leading superstar was one of the most quiet and stoic personalities in the entire league, and his nickname was the Big Fundamental. Fundamentals are not known for being flashy or highlight-worthy. Instead, they're smooth, methodical, and routine. Nothing about this team screamed box office, and because of this, people have been fooled into thinking that Tim Duncan was not an explosive player in his prime. And that's just simply not the case. Duncan actually had a very quick first step, as he would frequently face up the defender out of the post position, and then beat him to the rim. Sure, he's always been a player who would punish you with his fundamentals, but when he occasionally had to elevate over the top and simply slam on top of you, he could do that too. His speed in general is often slept on, as he was often one of the first players back in transition. Similar to Dirk Nowitzki, this ability declined dramatically as he got older, but don't lose track of the fact that he was one of the more explosive bigs in his prime. Next up is Akeem Olajuwon. His most underrated ability was certainly his pickpocket skills. When everyone thinks of Akeem's all-time great defense, they think of his shot blocking. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that, as he's the NBA's all-time leader in blocked shots. But with that being said, that was only a portion of his amazing defense. Over his career, Hakeem averaged an incredibly impressive 1.7 steals over the course of his career. That is easily the highest career average by a center in NBA history. For perspective, Hakeem averaged more steals in his career than Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and Draymond Green. You could seriously eliminate Hakeem's 3 to 4 blocks per game, and he would still be considered as an elite defensive player. In 1989, he averaged a whopping 2.6 steals per game. That is a mind-blowing average for a center. Even the great Gary Payton, the man who was known as the Glove for his tremendously great smothering defense, only got that high once in his 17-year career. In fact, in the last 14 years of NBA history, no player has averaged as many steals as Hakeem did in 1989. The last player to average that many steals was Chris Paul in 2009. The man may be known as the Dream, but in every way imaginable, he was known to be a nightmare on defense. Next on my list is Shaquille O'Neal. For me, the most underappreciated aspect of Shaq's game was his stellar footwork. There was a couple different choices for me to choose from. Shaq's passing ability and vision is something that people rarely talk about, but I gotta give the slight edge to his footwork. A lot of people view Shaq as the big, dominating figure who mindlessly bullied players in the paint. Although Shaq certainly imposed his will on smaller defenders, he didn't do it without his fair share of skill. Referees are on the lookout for traveling violations, but it always felt like they kept an eye on Shaq even more critically. Opposing centers often had few ways to defend the Diesel. He was the most dominant force in modern basketball history thanks mostly to his brute strength and size. But you don't get as dominant as he was without skill and knowing how to execute. Next is Steph Curry. To me, the most underrated part of Steph Curry's game is his inside scoring and his ability to finish around the rim. Too many people act like Steph.
Oh my god, bro. Just up and under, bro. Over defender, bro.
Steph is nothing more than a glorified three-point shooter, and because of this, I've heard many peers say that he wouldn't survive in the 80s or 90s due to the punishing interior basketball. I strongly disagree. What people need to understand is that Steph is one of the best and most efficient inside scorers league-wide. Last season, within 3 feet from the basket, Steph made a remarkable 76% of his shots, and the only few guards who were ahead of him shot the ball significantly less. Even more powerful players like Giannis and LeBron, whose game highly emphasizes on getting to the rim, were only slightly more efficient than Steph Curry was inside of 3.
Yeah, combo. Because you gotta think about it, Curry's only 6'3". LeBron's like 6'9", and Giannis, a couple was like 7 feet tall, bro. So imagine if Curry was their height, he would be averaging like 90% in the paint, bro. Like he would be unguardable.
Feet. Curry was also more efficient in that zone than taller star players like Luka Doncic.
Curry is more efficient than Luka Doncic and Jason Tatum, bro. And they're like 4 inches taller than him. Really like 7, cause Luka's like 4, I think. Luka's like 6'7", Jason Tatum like 6'9".
And Jason Tatum. His elite ball handling and perimeter shooting allows him to create space on the interior as well. So in a way, his greatest skill on the perimeter allows him to be a stronger threat on other areas of the court as well. Don't get it twisted. Steph is the greatest three-point shooter to ever live, but he's so much more than just that. Lastly, let's take a look at the logo of Jerry West. The man known as Mr. Clutch was one of the greatest scorers of all time, in both the regular season and the postseason. But if you ask me, the most underrated part of his legacy was his defense as a whole. Somehow, West's dynamic two-way dominance is something that often goes below the radar. West wasn't just a quality defensive player, but he was one of the greatest defenders of all time. The man would suffocate opposing guards with his intense on-ball defense, and he was likely the best pickpocket of his era. Unfortunately, most people are not aware of this because blocks and steals were not tracked until his final season in the league. But that season, at the age of 35, he did average 2.6 steals per game, which was the second best overall league-wide. He was also a quality shot blocker for a guard, thanks to his tremendous leaping ability and his ability to read the opposing offense. West officially made 5 all-defense teams in his career, which is already tremendously impressive for a perimeter player. But the thing is, that honor did not exist until West was over the age of 30. If he had all-defense team selections available to him in his 20s, then he likely would have more all-defense team selections than any other guard in NBA history. Throughout the decades, very few players have been able to average 30 points per game while shutting down the opposing team's best player. Jerry West was one of the few who could do that. So what do you guys think? What's an underrated aspect about your favorite player? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching as always. Make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
That's gonna do it, man. Make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.